Nobody wrote them down, they didn't need to. Every woman who walked into a grocery store in 1950s America already knew them, absorbed through years of watching mothers and grandmothers navigate the aisles with a particular kind of competence that looked effortless but wasn't. These were the unspoken rules of grocery shopping, and they governed the weekly ritual of the American housewife with a precision that the era's etiquette books never bothered to codify because everyone already understood. Start with what the grocery store actually was in 1955. The modern supermarket was still relatively new. The true self-service model had only fully taken hold after World War II, as refrigeration technology improved and suburban development exploded. By 1955, supermarkets accounted for about 50% of all food retail sales in the United States, up from nearly nothing a decade before. Women were navigating a new kind of shopping environment, and they built an entirely new set of social customs to go with it. The list was sacred. Not a casual mental note, not a vague intention, a written list, organized by the layout of the store, carried in a purse that also contained coupons clipped with actual scissors from the Wednesday paper. The housewife who shopped without a list was considered, quietly, to be someone who hadn't quite gotten herself together. The list was evidence of planning, and planning was a virtue. Women who showed up organized were respected by the butcher, the produce man, the cashier. It was a credential you carried in your hand. The budget was never discussed publicly. Every woman knew what she had to spend, and in the mid-1950s, food consumed roughly 22 to 24% of the average American household's income, compared to about 10% today. The calculation was real and constant, but the rule was that you didn't discuss it at the store, not with other women, not with clerks. You managed within your number quietly. The art was making it look like there was no constraint at all. The produce selection had its own protocol. You did not squeeze every tomato on the display. You made your selection efficiently, without rearranging the entire pile. You were there to choose, not to inspect. The produce man, almost always a man, was watching. And if he saw you handling things carelessly, his willingness to tell you what had just come in fresh and what hadn't was entirely at his discretion. The relationship with department staff was a resource, and good shoppers cultivated it. Speaking of which, knowing the staff by name was not optional. The butcher, in particular, was a figure of real importance. In 1955, approximately 40% of grocery store meat was still cut to order at a service counter rather than pre-packaged. A housewife who knew her butcher, who remembered to ask about his family, who thanked him specifically rather than generically, was a housewife who got the better cuts when selection was limited, who was told when something good had just come in, who occasionally found a little extra in her order without asking. This was not corruption. It was social capital deployed with practical intent. The cereal aisle was where children's desires ran directly into maternal authority. The rule was simple. Children did not make requests in the store. They could state a preference at home, in advance, which the mother could consider. But the public performance of wanting something, pointing, asking, the early stages of insistence, was handled with a quiet firmness that ended the matter before it developed. The store was not a negotiating space. A child who understood this caused no scenes. A mother whose child caused a scene carried that social weight through every subsequent trip to that store. The checkout line was a performance of organization. Everything came out of the cart in a deliberate order. Heaviest items first, fragile items last, grouped by how they would be bagged. The woman who arrived at the register and then began searching for her wallet was committing a minor but real violation of the unspoken code. You had your money or your account slip ready. You did not hold up the line. The cashier's time was respected the way any professional's time was respected. Credit at the grocery store was common but handled with discretion. Many smaller markets and some supermarkets maintained accounts for regular customers who would settle up weekly or monthly. Using credit was not shameful. It was practical, especially in households where the paycheck arrived on a specific day. But the woman who carried a running tab was expected to pay it promptly and without reminder. The credit relationship was one of mutual trust, and it was treated as such. There was also a strong ethic around freshness and waste that expressed itself at the store level. A housewife who bought more than her family could reasonably eat in a week was managing her household poorly, and the evidence of that poor management, the soft vegetables, the slightly past-date dairy, would show up on her table and in her trash. Buying for the week meant knowing the week. It meant understanding that Tuesday's pot roast would become Wednesday's hash, that Friday's bread would become Saturday's French toast. The shopping list was the first step in a week-long chain of use. None of this was written down anywhere because it didn't need to be. It lived in the watching and the doing, passed from one generation to the next in grocery stores that smelled like sawdust floors and fresh bread. Most of those stores are gone. The rules went quieter when the women who kept them stopped being the ones doing the shopping. But the efficiency, the relationship building, the respectful negotiation of shared public space, those instincts hold up, they hold up completely.